So they classify 200 and 100, well, 100 to 200 film as slow speed films. Slower speed films are excellent for outdoor landscape photography or inanimate objects. So, great choice for particularly sunny days since the film takes longer to absorb light. Now, let's see. I will say that on particularly bright days, for instance, when I'm trying to shoot a portrait, usually I set my aperture about 4 or 500. 4 or 500, about 4 or 5. And I'm pretty sure that's what I did here just because I wanted to get a good portrait. And the 200 film, when it's particularly bright days, you can see it did pretty good in the shadows, but all the highlights are like blown out. Step down, got a little porch. So yeah, not a lot of definition in his face, and this is really good for. So it's like the film thing says, it's not really good for portraits, and I kind of say that I've noticed that. Not to say that you can't shoot good portraits with it. It's just that I haven't had the best luck shooting portraits with 200 film, though I do still try. I think I might have a couple of good ones actually. But yeah, see, you got a couple of people here. But like it says, it definitely is better with inanimate objects. As you can see, the colors in this are really popping. Not retaining a lot of definition, but just a little. So this is Kodak Gold 200, but it's expired as well. So that's why they don't have all the stuff on it around it, just because it's harder to, it's curled up right now, so whatever. But here's some Kodak, here's some Fuji 200 superia. I kind of overexposed it a bit for the video, but you get the gist. Some Kodak 200 at night. Now this is with a pretty long exposure, as you can tell by the light stream. The light streams on the ground that I had to expose for a little bit. So at least a solid second. Half a second? I don't remember. But it definitely was like 1/30th of a second at least. I'll pare it down even a little shorter just because I get heavy anxiety crossing bodies of water or bridges. I do not know why. This was shot for a little longer, probably. I don't think I'm in it because you would get more light trails, I would believe, but I don't know. And I had to, even though I shot this at a minute, I still had to expose the film a lot just to retain any information. So shooting slow speed film at night is going to be a pain in the butt. Shooting slow speed film during the day, on the other hand, leaves you a lot of room for options. And honestly, a lot of room for experimentation. In my experience, just because I shoot a lot of people, I don't really generally set up my tripod a lot for my shoots. I mean, I don't have like a large body of just landscapes and stuff to really show off the 1 to 200 film. But I'll take more now that I know that. So the best example I have is like of flowers. So as you can see, all my still shots of flowers come out very well on 200 film. I should probably linger on that a little longer. Well, I did linger on this one. Anyway, move on. But vice versa, when you're shooting people, like it says, you get a lot of motion blur just because of how you have to expose the film. Like, especially when you're moving from the shadows to bright highlights and things like that. Everything that is covered as you would like it to be as far as light goes. So you got to learn to work with the film, but sometimes it's just best to know what you're going in with. Another example of low light, as you can see, like whenever you see all this on the edge, that means I had to really up the shadows so that you can see any definition in them at all. So this is, again, another trade-off of using slower speed films in low light situations is if you do have the aperture shut, if you do have to have the shutter open for a longer time, you're going to get these light bleeds, as you see. Even though, yes, it did trail a little bit, but that still would have been light that was just building up on the sign or whatever. So like here, for example, light's just building up in certain spots where it's the strongest, creating that beam effect, or like beam effect, that halo. This, the longer I have to expose the light, the brighter this seems. So it's creating a bubble. Whereas opposed to if I'm exposing it properly, you get less halation and you get more of what you see. It's a pretty flat day. I wish it was more defined, but you get what you get while you're there. Here's a better example of it, like being more properly exposed. Since there's no like outright, like as you can see, the tower is still very bright, and these lights are beaming. But like since there's no outright, straight out light source, everything kind of falls into place. So, yeah, 200 is fun for what it's used for, but take it as you will. But like, I like to use 400 just because it's more reliable. It's a medium speed film, as they say. And it says the best for general purpose. So the problem that I have with the 200 is, like I said, when I'm moving from different situations, I would have to do a lot of work to the camera in between. And if I didn't, then I would waste a couple rolls. Whereas the 400, if you set a good median, like I said, if you set your camera up right, like might start talking some technical talk and you might not really understand me if you don't know already. But if you're setting your camera, like if you're using 400 film, I would like how I shoot my camera is I'll keep it around like 11 to about 5 in general, especially during the day, because I don't want to go too bright and I don't want to go too dark. And I know that the 400 film is sensitive enough to work in lower light situations. And I say lower light instead of low light because even in low light situations, a 400 film, you still might need to use like a tripod or something. But in lower light, like sunset or something, you still may be good to use hand, depending on how steady your hand is. So, for example, low light situation, no tripod. Oh, here we go. Okay. So here I didn't have my tripod on hand. I thought maybe with the lights it'd be strong enough to like kind of push it a bit, but I was kind of mistaken. I wasn't so much. I just I didn't drop my aperture down lower. Had I done that, I probably would have came out better, but since I didn't, I had to push it a bit. And it comes out better here. I think this is the best one of the bunch on this roll of film. But even still, when I compensate a little bit more, as you see, I blow out my highlights. And this is within one artificial light off to the side. So it just takes a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of experimentation. Again, this is some Kodak Portra 400 in a low light situation. I got a little better with it. But this is the problem that I admittedly have with Kodak. And I like it, but at the same time, I kind of don't. It's just that it gives everything this kind of soft glow. It's very dreamy. And it works for what it works for. For instance, this is a Fuji. I like that more. Like, this feels more real to my eye. It's not sacrificing detail for like a softer feel, and I feel like that's what it is. Kodak is more, well, the Kodak film in my experience is just a very much softer experience. They use more warmer, I don't know what kind of color they use in there, but they use a warmer color. I think even when you develop it, it comes out kind of blue when you pour it out, and that tint affects the tones in your thing. So that's why when you look over here, even though I was using softer lights, you get a softer color on a 400 versus over here I use the same lights, and this is more industrial feeling. Like, this is more accurate to what it is. Like, I know the color of this, I know the color of all this stuff, I know the color of my boy here. So Fuji 400, if you can get your hands on some of it, it's just very reliable. Such a good film. Here's some Fuji 400 in a low light situation. I did use a tripod here, although I didn't have it set up like for like a minute or anything. It was just, I just wanted to have it as steady as possible. So I set it on a timer, and I set it there, and I pressed it real quick, and I think it's only at like 1/30th of a second, if I'm being honest, 1/30th or 1/60th of a second. But it's just the fact that I put the tripod there and I sat it down a little bit. So, like, I probably could have got this with my hands, but admittedly, that would everything in the background would have been shaky just because I didn't have a solid foundation. But since the only thing that's moving in the image is this guy, it kind of like, you kind of get the gist. And as you see, no matter what you do if you're shooting for a longer exposure, trees, if there's kind of like a windy day, are usually just going to end up blurry messes. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Say, for example, some Fuji Superia on the street. This is very versatile film, very good. Getting minor details, everything being retained in the shadows. Not blowing out my highlights. It's pretty good in motion. Okay, sorry for the cutoff. My phone died while I was recording this. But now we're back, and I want to talk about 800 film in low lighting situations. Now here we have our model in the living room, and I believe I have 2 artificial lights set up. I'm not using a tripod. The camera is on hand, I believe. I'm shooting at, I can't remember. I don't want to lie. As you see, we got a lot of grain in the shadows, but that's been a repeating pattern for me anyway. And that's a spot in the film, so ignore that. But yeah, it's better. I used a red light, so it kind of cut everything back, and I cut off one of the lights. As you see, I had to raise the exposure. Let's get some more properly exposed. As you see, just I believe there's one light, as you can probably tell by the light in her eyes, just one powerful light pointing down on her. And I think I may have used the flash as well, just to be safe. May have overpowered it as well, but you can't go wrong. And then to directly contrast that, we have some Cinestill 800 at night. And this was underexposed, and I just raised it up a bit in post. But if we have we can find a properly exposed one here. I had to raise it up in post, but at the same time, maybe if I would have, I don't know, maybe raise my aperture more. I mean, I did lower it to about, I want to say a 4. But you see, we got a lot of details in the highlights. In the shadows, you still got some information. Got people in the background there. Yeah, that's perfect. Just the street lights. See, the 800 Cinestill, it gives it like that cinematic look. That's the hint, the name Cinestill. And it's based off of some kind of form of Kodak. Not like they stripped something off or put something on. I don't really know. But direct comparison would be some Kodak Portra 800 in studio situations, which you can consider low light because I'm just using some basic what was it, newer lights, not the LED ones, but just the basic bulb. And I also have that's the Kodak Portra 800. Recently, I've been using more colored lights, and this is with the newer LED lights. So the light put out that you can get for artificial lights will make a vast difference as far as Portra 800 goes in indoor shooting situations. Let's see if we can't see some Cinestill in an outdoor situation. And there's just some street photography stuff, but what I want you to focus more on is that this is shot on a very bright day, and all I did was raise my aperture to about 11, maybe 18, I think. And what that does is you retain a lot of detail because, as it promises, it's a slower speed film. So if you raise your aperture to about an 11 or 12, you feel me? It requires less light to expose the film over a longer period of time. I'm getting confused just talking about it. But either way, the higher your ISO, you want to just lower your aperture or lower the amount of time the film is going to be exposed because it's a very light sensitive film. So just like that. And then you still want to raise your aperture. So you want to raise your aperture and you want to raise your exposure, lower your exposure time. And then you can shoot 800 in a day and get like a lot of information in a picture. And like in a very short amount of time. Whereas in the nighttime, it's the reverse. You have to expose it way longer, even though it is very light sensitive. It's still nighttime. So, but the fact that I can get them in motion and not have them be a complete blur is a testament in itself of how light sensitive the film is. Again, more daytime examples of the Cinestill 800. You just got to shoot it really fast and really with the aperture closed down. But more in its proper situation, you retain a lot of detail, a lot of information, especially if you set yourself up with like a tripod or something. Now the dangers of shooting Cinestill in the daytime is you can really blow out everything, and this is what I was talking about with the halation. Is it it just causes, you can see it on everything. Now knowing that, you can use it to effect, but for your first time you might be like, gosh darn it, I didn't wasted all that money on that film. Now here's a happy medium. This is sunrise, so I like porta and just 800 film in general for like sunset and late evening shots, like nighttime shoots, just because I feel like that's the perfect place for the tones of this film, like really just stand out. I do like it in studio just because it allows me to uh I can control it more and get more shots out of my roll. But sunset, low light situations, paired with like some artificial light, it's probably stands out the best in my opinion as far as uh, those situations. So if you can have a more controlled situation, I recommend an 800 film. And just to review, I think 400 is just your best all around general use film. You can't go wrong with it. If you like Kodak, just be prepared that they like to really manipulate their colors for more of a pop, which is fine. Just know that going in, so that you're better prepared for whatever situation you want to do. Fuji, on the other hand, is more industrial looking. It's more true to your eye. It's kind of blue, I guess you could say. And what that does is just gives everything its real feel. Nothing's like really popping or standing out. Everything just kind of the colors, mostly like the reds, the yellows. Whereas on on Kodak, they focus more on skin tone. So everything's more warm, more colorful, more pop. And that's just across brands. Even if you go to 200, it's just the same case. Fuji, it's more industrial looking. Shot that kind of overexposed. And Kodak, definitely more pop. Definitely more pop, more color. That's what it's more focused at, in the color manipulations and the vibrancies and things like that. Whereas Fuji, way more industrial, more true to the earth, more greens, more blues, yellows, reds, greens, blues. So it's all about what you like, what you want to shoot with. Fuji, Kodak. Kodak, yeah, it's Kodak too. You just do a lot. Fuji. Kodak. Fuji. Kodak. Cinestill. Yeah, and that's going to conclude this video. Don't really know where else to take it. It's already eating up more time than I thought it would. So, I hope you enjoyed this comparison video. Hope if you learned anything from it, you learned just the differences in film and what situations to apply them in, and how they can benefit you and what you should watch out for. I hope this video was informational for you. If you liked it, if you made it this far, turn on post notifications. You might find the next one helpful. And I'll just catch you on the next one. And until then, take care of yourself.